In this video, I would like to address a couple comments that I got the other day when I did the video that talked about creating meaningful works, is how I put it, work of value, about putting the thought and the creativity and the effort in to at least make an attempt to make your images over time extraordinary. And it was really weird because I think that maybe it was too open-ended or something, but I had several people that claimed that this did not apply really to professional photography, that the only people they cared about were what their clients thought. And someone had asked me, do you think that this kind of creative approach applies to commercial work? And I want to address that because yes, I think it absolutely applies to that approach. Before I get into that, let me preface this by saying that I do not make my living doing client work in photography. I do video work. I do an artist series right now where I'm working with fine art photographers, and that's what I do. I am not a commercial photographer. So if you are a commercial photographer, this is a discussion worth having, and I would really like some input from those of you who do make your living as photographers, because I think this is a really interesting discussion, but I think it's important as well. My experience with photography, I've had a lot of friends who are commercial photographers. When I grew up, my dad was a commercial illustrator, and we had a lot of friends of the family who were commercial photographers. It's been very interesting to see how that business has changed over the years. There are things that stock photography has replaced that used to have large budgets to send photographers across the world to get a specific shot for an annual report per se. And a lot of that has shrunk, and it can still be done, obviously. There are a lot of people who make their living as a photographer. But it's just, the business has changed a lot. And what I think is very interesting, and I want to say this, that when I'm talking about the creativity involved in creating works of value, work that means something, I'm almost more impressed when I see commercial work that's taken to that level than I am with fine art work that's taken to that level. In the art world, typically you have complete freedom over what it is you want to shoot, and that comes with a set of difficulties, a set of parameters around it. It's almost so wide open that like scaling that down into what you want to specialize in is some of the challenge there. Typically when you shoot commercial work, and I'm not talking about photojournalism, I'm talking about like product photography, portrait photography, celebrity photography, things like that somebody would be hired to go shoot. Let's say you open up a magazine, you're thumbing through and you find like a Mercedes-Benz ad or a BMW ad or something, Ferrari ad. And they've hired a photographer to do a shoot of the car, and you see something that's really amazing, and that happens. And you're like, wow, this is a great shot. What's really impressive to me when you see great photography in the commercial realm is that a lot of times we're not, well, in fact, all the time, we're not privy to some of the things that went into that job that we'll never know about. So for instance, let's say you're shooting for a car company. Generally, there is some kind of ad agency that you're probably working through. There's an art director, there's a designer, and there's several people involved that have input in what they are looking for in the image. Sometimes there's a request for a proposal, and the parameters are drawn up in terms of what the image is going to be, how it's going to be shot. And so it can get very detailed. It's rarely improvisatory in that sense. And so with that comes the challenge of sometimes convincing people, if you were the photographer, that maybe it could be a little better if this happened. And sometimes you have to sell that to them. And so there is an element of fulfilling the requirements of the job. And then I think where the best of the best start coming out, where the really best photographers shine through, are those that can take that, fulfill the job requirements, and then do something even more special with it. And these are people that end up becoming very well known. They get a lot of work. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for that. Now, it doesn't happen with every client. Friends of mine who do this, who shoot commercially, you hear stories all the time. Sometimes clients are more specific and less willing to budge than others. Sometimes clients, because they're people like anything else, they can be a little bit difficult to deal with. And certainly there are jobs that you just fulfill to move on and get the paycheck. But that's normal, but I think where you see when it does allow itself for that kind of creative interpretation in it, I think that's where things become very special. And I think ultimately, this is why anybody would hire a photographer to begin with. If I hired a graphic designer to do something for me, I would hire them because they're going to know more about graphic design. They're going to be able to help me in a way that I won't be able to do because I don't have that skill set. It doesn't always happen, but that's how photography should work. Anyway, to keep this from being too long-winded, if you are a photographer who makes your living through photography, I would like to leave a comment and join in this discussion. I am, like I said, I am not one of those people, and I certainly have nothing but the utmost respect for people who do this. Whether you shoot weddings or whatever that is, I shot one wedding one time, I'll never do it again, and I have enormous respect for people who shoot weddings and do it really well. It's really hard. Same thing, you're dealing with people. You're dealing with large budgets sometimes. Weddings are expensive. People pay a lot of money for them. And that's a very legitimate way to do it. And the best photographers who do that are the ones that are able to bring something more, that put, I hesitate to use the word a personal stamp on it because it's not an arrogant ego thing, but for instance, if I hire Bill Jones because he's a great photographer, if he's going to shoot a wedding, I would hire him because I want him to do that and be himself. And so anyway, I hope this opens up a conversation. I would be really curious to hear what you guys have to think. I live mostly in the more of the art end of things and less in the commercial world. So like I said, I'm not an expert with that. But anyway, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. If you guys enjoyed this video, please remember to like it, share it, subscribe to The Art of Photography. We're doing a lot of talking these days, but I have some other stuff coming up that I'm working on. We've got some gear stuff coming up, some tutorial stuff, and hopefully we'll get on a roll here and create some more awesome videos. So until the next video, I'll catch you guys then. Later.